But it is nice to have very concrete things like Bitcoin, that's for sure.
Oh, so you think, so most of it is shaky ground, but there are some things, there's like islands of sturdiness.
Yeah,
And Bitcoin is one of them.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, look at the dollar system, not to pivot this into the dollar right away, but the dollar
That's
is like
the shaky ground.
it's
Is
the
the
most
dollar.
who truly understands the dollar system? I mean, the totality of it, the euro dollar system, the way that monetary policy interacts with the economy. Is monetary issuance inflationary? What's the relationship between unemployment and inflation? Even policymakers don't understand these things. Economists don't seem to understand them. What is inflation? How do you define inflation? None of these things are really known or knowable.
So a lot of people kind of make a claim that there's a lot of manipulation possible with the dollar, with those currencies. If you couple that with the fact that people don't understand it, and yet there's claims that it's being manipulated by centralized power, how do you bring those two ideas together? If no one understands it, how can you manipulate it?
I think what we don't understand are the long-term consequences of our structures. So like the Fed's mandate to target unemployment and steady, exchange rates or low inflation. What we don't understand is, okay, what is the result of doing that continuously for 40 years?
Right.
What is the net effect of that? What is the consequence of the long-term accumulation of debt and, basement interest rates? What is the net effect of that on society? We might understand just much short-term features of the system, but I think it's the longer-term features we don't understand.
Do you think there's like malevolent people, like people that don't have good intent in central banks, like in the system? When you have centralized power in any forms, it's susceptible to somebody hacking the system, taking the power, and in the shadows, this is where conspiracy theories come in, right? In the shadows, be able to, uh, act out things that have a lot of negative impacts on a large percent of the population in greedy self-interest. Do you think there's people like that, or do you think fundamentally most people are good, even those associated with sort of central banking?
Oh, I mean, I don't villainize those people. I think everyone is the hero of their own story, right? So they all believe that they're a force for good in the world. You have to. Are there any true villains? I don't think so. I think they get socialized into a world where they believe their particular skills and their mandate is, what they should be doing. I think they might be presumptuous or arrogant in some cases. And, I think it's more of a systemic issue where you have a small handful of very homogenous types of people with PhDs from the same institutions that are brought up in the same cultural context that, set policy and wield a tremendous amount of control over society. And I think they have this notion that you can tinker society, you can play with a few key variables and tinker society into a state that is desirable or good. And that's what they're trying to do. And I think the consequences of that can be pretty bad. But no, I don't think it's born out of malevolence.
There's an interesting idea. I think Michael Malice brought it up as a test whether you're on the left or the right. The question he asks, which is, do you think some people are better than others? If you say yes, he claims you're on the right. If you start like saying a lot of things, like you're on the left. So if you start explaining yourself, equivocating, yeah, it's a good term for it. I was really, in this test, I suppose I would be on the left because I'm uncomfortable with the idea that some people are better than others as a basic feeling, as a starting point in the way you think about the world. Because as we're talking about, everybody's a hero of their own story. When you start to think some people are better than others as a starting axiom, it's like a slippery slope to where you think you're way better than others. And then you start to basically, it's okay to take advantage of a large percent of the population for the greater good.
Totally.
And then you go into Stalin mode and Hitler mode, where it's okay to murder a large part of the population for the greater good. So it's like, it's this very dangerous slippery slope in my mind. So I try to not, I was always uncomfortable with that kind of test or even that kind of thought. And yes, the same applies in government and central banking is, if you think some people are better than others, applying your idea of what is good can have large-scale detrimental effects.
Of course.
Yeah.
I'm glad you didn't pose me the question. I mean, I think it maybe not, the left-right axiom isn't, the disjunction isn't the way I would sort of put it, but, you know, to me, it's just, if you reason in a consequentialist way, you know, that lends itself to authoritarianism.
Yeah.
Whereby you think you can shape society, and only you can shape society in a positive direction according to your, you know, specific objectives.